Hello, thank you all for joining our presentation, Extend Bootstrap with Your Own UI Widget, hosted by Pluralsight author Paul Sheriff. I'm Lindsay Locke from Pluralsight, and I'd like to take a minute to tell you what to expect during our webinar. First, I'd like to draw your attention to the chat box in your webinar control panel. Paul will be answering questions today, so please submit your questions through the chat box. Be sure to tweet about your experience today with our hashtag PluralsightLive. We'll be choosing a winner at random for a free month of training. After you exit the webinar, you'll be prompted to take a short survey. We'd love to hear from you, so please take a few moments to complete it. This webinar will be recorded, and we'll email the link out in a few days. And with that, thank you for joining us. Let's welcome Paul.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you all for attending. Looks like we got over 175 people already. That's great. And I see people coming in from all over the world. That's fantastic. Well, as Lindsay said, my name is Paul Sheriff. I'm the President and CEO of PDSA Incorporated. We're a custom development shop here in Southern California. So very nice out here today. I hope you're all having good weather. Also, as you kind of have guessed, I am also a Pluralsight instructor. I have, boy, what do I have, 7 courses up there now, and I'm working on my 8th one. And now our company, we do custom software development. We offer virtual CIO and CTO services. You can find out more about me at pdsa.com. I'm also a Microsoft Regional Director. That's basically an unpaid evangelist for Microsoft. And we also sell some developer tools. We have our code generator and our .NET productivity framework, so check those out when you get a chance as well. All right, so today what are we going to do? Well, I'm going to talk about kind of building your own UI widgets on top of Bootstrap. So Bootstrap, as most of you know, is kind of a really nice CSS library that can make some really good looking HTML, so it helps you build your websites. So we're going to use Bootstrap, we're going to use JavaScript, jQuery, and CSS. It's mostly going to be centered around CSS today, very little jQuery. We're going to just go through 3 examples today. I'm going to talk about panels, Bootstrap panels, and how you can add things onto that. We'll talk about how to build your own custom Readme blocks and some summary blocks. Now I'm going to be using HTML only. There's going to be no reliance on MVC, web forms, PHP, Java, anything like that. Okay? So we're just going to use pure HTML pages. At the end of this seminar, I will have the location where you can download all the samples, and I do have it in both HTML and MVC though, because I am kind of an MVC guy. So, all right. This particular segment that I'm doing today is actually an extract from my course called Build Your Own Bootstrap Business Application Template in MVC. So some of the topics I'm going to cover today I covered in that as well. This particular course has basically 9 modules in it. I go through kind of building up your own template in MVC that has some custom HTML5 and Bootstrap MVC helpers, building data-driven navigation systems, creating your own Bootstrap widgets, part 1 and part 2. So, and that's kind of what I'm going to go through today. Talking about working with tables and server-side paging, things like that. And then I have an alternate design for edit and delete pages in MVC. So check out that course when you get a chance. Appreciate that. All right, so our first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to talk about using the Bootstrap panel classes, and we're going to add on some additional items within the panel header area. Okay, so as you can see here on the screen shots, this is a typical Bootstrap panel. Now what I've done is I have added on a little icon here. Okay, with it has a little music symbol there, and then it has country music. And then you see over to the right, I actually have the reload there. All right. And so, the reload is just a special thing that I added on. And then over here on the other side, you can kind of see the genre there, where I'm going to actually be able to change with a drop down. Okay, so we're going to learn how to add these things on. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop, and we're going to go ahead and drop down here and bring up our first sample. Now this sample here is the one that I'm going to show you where you can download all of that. So, and I'm going to go ahead and run the first one here. And when I run this, we'll see it actually what it looks like, and then we'll come back and we're actually going to build it. So, all right, so this is what we saw then on the slides, right? So I've got the little music symbol up here, okay, and then followed by some label. And typically with a panel, you typically see a Bootstrap panel with just the title in it. So now I've added on a little glyph over here, and then I've added on kind of this special area over here. Now since this is just HTML, I have no functionality behind this. This is really just to show you how to kind of build this and style all of this. All right, so that's what it looks like. So what I've done is I've pre-created this HTML page that simply has a panel. Okay, so this is using Bootstrap. It has a panel and the panel primary, and then a panel heading, and then the panel title. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and just remove some of this stuff here, and then just a table inside of the panel. So pretty simple. We run this, and as you can see, it doesn't have anything in it, right? So what I want to do is I want to kind of build up some additional stuff on here. So instead of just having the title within the H1 here, okay, what I'm going to do is going to add on something different. So I'm going to use a span tag. And in the span, okay, what I'm going to do is add a class from Bootstrap. Okay, so I'm going to use the glyphs. So I'm going to use a glyph icon. And they actually have a glyph icon called music. Okay, so now I'm going to just use that, put that in, and I'm going to go ahead and run this. And now you can see I've got my little music symbol there. Right, so the whole point of this is to teach you how you don't have to take, if you read the documentation of Bootstrap and they tell you, you put words inside of here. Remember, this is still HTML. You can put in pretty much whatever you want. Okay, so then I'm going to do a non-breaking space here, and I'm going to type in country music. As you can tell, I'm kind of a big country music person, so I like country music, yes. All right, so there now I've added words and a little glyph. So that's kind of nice. It beefs up the panel, gives it a little more interest for the user. Now the next thing I'd like to do is I would like to add something else on the other side. Okay, so if you remember our example here, right, we had this area over here on the right. Okay, it's kind of like a button where the user could maybe reload, and then you might go out and refresh the data or something like that. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to add one more thing within the H1 here in the panel title. And I'm going to do an href here. Okay, so I'm simulating like you would maybe have some sort of postback that you're going to do. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add on a panel right, because I want to have it go over to the right. I'm going to add a glyph icon again. Okay. And then I'm also going to add on the glyph icon. Oops. All here. And I'm going to use the random one. And then within here, I'm going to add a non-breaking space again. And I'm going to call it reload, or you can put refresh, or whatever you want to do there is fine. Now let's go ahead and run this. Well, as you can see, it didn't really do what I wanted it to do, did it? Okay. So the problem is sometimes when you use these things, you have to kind of maybe override their styles a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a little style up here in the head. Okay. And I'm going to modify the panel right. Okay. So inside of the panel right, I'm going to do a few things because number one, I want to put a nice border around it. Okay, so I'm going to do a 0.05 EM solid light gray. That'll be the border. I do want to have a nice border radius around this. I'm going to go ahead and add a border radius. There we go. And I'll probably do, what am I going to do on this one? A 0.25 EM, 0.5 EM. And then we got to work with the margin a little bit, okay, to make sure it comes out in the right spot. So for this one, I happen to know it happens to be minus 0.2 EM to get it to come out correctly. I'm going to use a little bit of padding here. And I've got this pre-created. That's, I mean, obviously you would do a little bit of trial and error on this like we always do with CSS, right? We never get anything right the first time, do we? And then, of course, I'm going to float this right. So let's go ahead and run this part that we've done so far. Okay, great. It's getting better. I've got it moved over to the right-hand side of that panel now. Right? Still have my glyph over here. Still have the title. And now I've added this. Now, that's still a little too much, right? I don't like the underline there. I want these to be maybe a little bit closer together. So I do need to still do a little bit more here. So on the panel title, I want to say, well, if I've got an A tag, and I've got an A that is active, and I've got an A that is visited. I want to kind of apply all of these styles to all three of those, and that is the text decoration of none. Okay? So by putting all these things in like this, right, okay, what I'm doing is I'm giving myself the ability to kind of override some of the things that they've done and just make this look a little bit better. I still get the cursor changes so people know that they can click on it, right, but I don't have the text decoration of that underline anymore. So this is a pretty simple example, but it does kind of show you that, hey, with just a little bit of you overriding some of the things in Bootstrap, you can basically make this look like whatever you want. And again, I do this to add interest, okay, to the panel, number one. Run this one again, right? So I do this to add a little bit of interest, but also because if I didn't put a button up here, I'd have to waste space down in here, or maybe you might put it in the footer. The problem with that is it's kind of far away from where people start at the top here. And so then they've got a button right here on the right that will let them reload. So that's some of the stuff that I look at. But also what's nice is because we are using Bootstrap, it is responsive, isn't it? That means that as I skosh this down, it's going to work on all devices. Kind of nice too, right? That's why we don't want to always have to recreate everything ourselves. We want to take advantage of Bootstrap as much as we can, but maybe extend things a little bit. Okay. The other thing is we can always try it out. I use the Electric Plum iPhone simulator, so then I could actually try this in an iPhone and see what it looks like on an iPhone. And there we go. We see that it still looks at least decent here. Kind of lost my border a little bit, but you know what? The functionality is still there. It still looks good, and that's what I look for. Okay? Could use a media query maybe to change the coloring or whatever to make it match. But you also really need to kind of try this out. These are simulators. They don't always work exactly like what we think they might. All right, I have one more sample of a panel add-on then. Okay, and so for this particular panel, what I've done on this one is, again, I have maybe country music again, but then maybe I want to have a little nice drop down. Okay, so I'm using the Bootstrap drop down here. So I've got I made a button with a caret that goes down. It says genre, and then I could change this to maybe jazz. Now all I'm doing is I'm changing the title over here. I'm not refreshing the data because again this is all just pure HTML. So I didn't want to have to write a ton of JavaScript code. So let's take a look at this and what I did to get the button here now. Again, it's pretty much similar to what I did before. Okay? One thing you notice, I don't have a lot of styles here. What I've done is I've moved all the styles into a CSS file. Under Content here you'll find a PDSA-panel-additions. Okay? This is my naming standard. I always kind of like naming things with my URL. That's my URL, PDSA. And that way I know it's my CSS, it's whatever, my styles. This one I'm overriding some Bootstrap stuff. So in this particular case I didn't want to give it a PDSA prefix, but that happens to be my standard. So anyway, I put all those into a CSS file now. Then I did add on a little bit more styling here because on the panel right I don't want a border now because the border would look silly around a button. Okay, and then I had to modify the margin top a little bit. So what I did on this one is I did create a span to put the music type, the genre in here, and I gave it an ID of genre because I'm going to use that in a minute. Then I created a drop down. Okay, so this is part of Bootstrap. I used a button, so I styled their button with BTN and BTN Success. That's why it came out looking green. Okay. I've got an ID on this one too called Select Button, and then I'm using their data-toggle. And I'm saying it's a drop down. There's the little caret, right? Again, that's part of Bootstrap. And here's also then an unordered list with these list items. Okay, and the list items have an anchor tag in them, and that changes between jazz and country. This is my drop down area, isn't it? Okay, and so I've got a drop down menu here. All right, so that's how I got the button and the drop down menu right here. Now, how did I get it when I click on rock, for instance? How did I get it to change, the words there. Well, that's just a tiny little bit of jQuery code down here. What happens is when the document loads, okay, I'm going to go hook into that UL genres, and that's that list, this guy right here. It's unordered list. Hook into that, and I'm going to look for anything, any LIs and A tags in there, and I'm going to hook into the anchor tags click event. So then I can grab the text from that anchor tag. Remember, that's like jazz, country, rock, whatever. I can grab the text. Okay, and then into the title area of the panel, okay, remember I gave it a span ID of genre. I can change its text to this text that I got out plus a space and then music. Pretty simple. Okay, and thus I end up then with this little drop down. Now obviously, besides changing the text, you would want to then maybe post back, get the data, and then refresh the table as well. And however you want to do that is fine. You may do a post back, you may make an AJAX call, you know, whatever you do, that's fine. So, okay. So that's all, you know, kind of the first part of this, right? So, you know, creating these little add-ons to Bootstrap. Okay? Now let's go kind of a little bit further, and let's do what I call the Readme Box here. Okay? We do a lot of consulting for a lot of clients, and so you know all of these things that I've developed here to show you are stuff we did in actual projects for clients. I mean, this is just what we like to do. And so what I'm going to show now is what I call a Readme Box. This might be used on like a home page, or maybe a sales page where you say, hey, I've got a free delivery offer right now that we're going to do. Okay? And so this is going to display a Readme box that will lead to more information. This is all just created with CSS. And I'm going to lay it out exactly like, it looks like a regular panel in Bootstrap. Okay? And I did this deliberately. It actually has a header and a body and a footer. And then what I'm going to do is eventually move that into a CSS file, but I'm also going to show you then how to theme it so that you can change the colors up here or down here if you want. That's what we're going to do. So when you look at this, right, so the way I laid this out is I have an overall box. So that's the first div that we see here. And the div is class equals PDSA-readme-box. And again, I use the PDSA prefix just so I know that it's my class. Then underneath that, so that Readme box is the overall structure that we see over here. All right. So then we have the Readme header, right, and that's this area. We have the Readme body, which is now this area. And then we have the Readme footer, which is this area down here. So again, the structure, if you know Bootstrap, that's very similar to the way they do panels and almost everything. They always have like an outer panel, and then they have a header, a body, and a footer. Try to keep it exactly the same. All right, let's drop down and take a look at building the Readme then. Now this one's a little more involved. Okay. So, I could start out, I wanted to at least start out and show you kind of a blank one here. So here I've laid out the structure. So inside of a row and then a column here, okay, what I've done is I've laid out a single Readme box. Let's take a look at the final sample first, and then we'll come back to this one. And I'm not going to type it all in for you, but you'll get an idea of how we do it. So here you can see the overall box. Now, I don't know if you can see that over the sharing here, but when I move into it, it does kind of change its opacity a little bit. So it's about 90% opacity right now, and then it goes to, it's about 10%, and then it goes to 0. Okay. So that way it gives it a little bit of effect that when the user hovers over it, they know they could do something with it. All right, so that's what it looks like. And if you remember from the slides, I had an outer box, then had a header, body, then a footer. So now this one has no style hooked up to it at all. So if we run this, that's what it looks like with the structure in place, but no styling. And so obviously we need to kind of build this up a little bit around everything. So the first thing we might do is actually create the first style here. And we would do stuff like position relative. Okay, if I'm going to create kind of a container, I usually try to start out with a position relative. Okay, I would set the border width to be thin, border style to be solid, and the border color to be whatever, it doesn't matter. I think I did 21708F is what I did. No, I do not know those colors off the top of my head. I have a cheat sheet right beside me, guys. So don't think I just know all that stuff. All right, I'm going to set the opacity here, okay, at 0.9. So, and then we're going to do a minimum height of 16 EMs. All right. Now with that, if we were just to run this, we'll now start to see the outline of the box. So this is how you build things up, right? You kind of create the outer container. Then you start looking into, hey, what do we want to do here when certain things happen? Okay, so on this one I might do a Readme Box, and I might do a, let's apply the hover to it, right? So we'll use this pseudo class here, and I'll set the opacity to 1. Okay? So if we now run this, see how it's like that, but when I hover over it, it all becomes, as you can see. Hopefully you can see that. If not, you'll see it when you run this, when you download the samples. Okay, but this is how it's done, guys. I mean, it's that simple, where you just start building up all of your different little styles here, right? So the next one I would create then would be the Readme Header. And in this one we figure out, okay, well, I want a little bit of padding on the inside. I don't want anything butted right up against it. Okay, I got a background color here that I want to do. Background 317. And then I'm going to text align. So then I can just, again, I like to kind of do one, see what that might look like. Oh, great, there we go. So now I can see that it's been centered. The image has been centered, and then it's got that background color. Not bad, right? So I made the, the border outline match the color of the header. So we just keep building up little by little, right? I'm not going to continue. I mean, I think you guys get the idea. So let's go right to the final sample so we can take a look. So here's everything I did so far, those 3 things. So then I look at, what do I want inside of the body? Okay, well, the body I want to be positioned absolutely, because it's going to be relative, right? Okay, so it's going to be, since this part is relative, I can use absolute inside of here because it's going to be absolute then to the outer box, right? Okay. SS works, it's great. So then I have a little bit of padding on the left and the right. I have the margin, and I have the margin bottom set to some specific values. Okay, for the H1, I say I want an extra large font. For a P tag within the body, I want a medium font. And then for the bottom, for the Readme footer, again, absolutely positioned. Bottom and right is 0. Width is 100%. The alignment is center. Got a little bit of padding to push the text off of the bottom. And then I wanted a small font size on this. Then for the anchor tag, I didn't want any text decoration, and I wanted a color of red. Then when we run this, we can see the results of all of that. See my padding on the left and the right within the body. Okay, it's positioned absolutely within here. And I have my footer area down here that's in red, and it's just a little bit of padding off of the bottom there. And again, since this is in Bootstrap, okay, it's contained within the Bootstrap row and column. You can see how it does, work correctly at all screen widths. And again, we can try it out in like an iPhone and just make sure that everything still looks correct. All right, pretty nice to be able to do that. So then if you wanted to, you could put a bunch of them together. Okay, so now I've got the same thing where, again, I split off the Readme box into its own CSS. I did one additional thing, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Go ahead and run this, though. So now I have 2 different boxes, but notice how the color scheme is different. Right? So this one has kind of what we did before with the red and the kind of the, this teal color around it. Okay, but this one is all black, has a white header, and then has blue, kind of bluish words down here. So if we look down here now, okay, on this one I just do PDSA Readme Box, Readme Header. So that's exactly what we did before. But now look at this one. Now I did a Readme Box, but then I added on Readme Box -info. Okay, by applying the -info, it means it's now got some color schemes to it. So let's go over and look at the content for this. So there's what I've done is I took all the CSS that we just looked at on the last page, and I took it and put it out here, but I removed any colors. And there's no more color anywhere in this CSS. Whereas on the first one, notice we had a color of red here, we had a background color here, and we had a background color here. I've eliminated all of those when I put it into the CSS. And then look what I did. I created my own color theme. Okay, so I said, well, if you add on this -info here, that gives me the border color. If you add on the -info and it's within the Readme header, then the background color becomes this. And if you have an anchor tag, then the color becomes this, as long as you've applied that -info. So this is a way that you can theme things, right, just by adding on these additional guys right here. That really takes the whole power of CSS, right, and that's really what you want to be taking advantage of. Okay? And what I do is I make these so that they are basically full width. Okay? I can set any height I want on it just by overriding anything, right? So I can make the height that I want. But then I take advantage of Bootstrap by putting these guys within rows and columns, right? In this case, I put these two boxes within a column SM-4, okay? Or if it's extra small, right? So if it's small, medium, or large, it's going to be in a 4, okay, 4 columns in Bootstrap. But if it goes to extra small, it's going to be 12. That does, let's go ahead and run this again, Internet Explorer. As soon as we hit the extra small, right, what happens? It now goes, up and down, doesn't it? Okay. Cool, that's what we want. And we would see the same effect if we did this on an iPhone, where they're now going to be one below another. Okay. Now, what I could do is I could add, a margin top around the whole box to make them, separate a little bit. Okay, so that might be a good idea. Where, inside of the CSS top level of this guy. Okay. Maybe you say margin, top is maybe like 0.5 EM. So, and when we run this, I would hopefully get, didn't get a margin there, I don't know why. So you want to play with stuff like that, okay? See what you get out of it, all right? But I like doing the theming. I like splitting this out into CSS files, and that way I can just override things on a page-by-page basis. All right, cool. So again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them into the chat window, and then we will address them, at the end. Okay. Happy to take questions. I love questions. So let's move on to our last and final CSS here, and extensions that we might do. Okay. And again, I got all this code for you, so I'll show you the URL where you can download this stuff. But what the next one is kind of what I call a summary block. Okay, and I've seen this in some other templates out there. Okay, and the templates that I've seen, boy, I'll tell you, the CSS was huge. And so I find sometimes that people overdo it a little bit on the CSS. I'm kind of a minimalist. I like to really work this thing down until it almost gets to be nothing. Okay. Some people are asking if the samples will be available. Yes, I think I just said that the samples will be available after the session. And I will put up a link at the very last slide, so you'll be able to get that. Okay, so hang on, we're getting there. All right, so these summary blocks, what I use is I use these on like a dashboard page, right? Kind of the main page that will guide people, okay? They'll kind of guide people through, okay, to another page, right? It's kind of a, hey, this is like a 23 potential matches or something, and then they can link down to another page to go see something. What's nice about this is we've only got about 100 lines of CSS, and that includes 4 themes. Okay. So again, I laid this out very similar to the way that I did the Readme Box. Okay. And so I've got a summary block. That's the outer guy. Okay. I've got then the summary, what I call the summary background. That's the whole background area. And I have a body area, which is where like the 23 and the potential matches are. Okay. And then I've got like a summary line 1 and a summary line 2. And then I have a footer area. So that's how I've laid this out. Again, very similar to what you would do like with a panel or something. Okay. All right. So let's drop down and take a look at how this works then. So we'll open up this guy. So the first thing we'll look at, let me go ahead and just run this first. Let's put it back in IE here. All right, so here's our summary block. I'm going to go ahead and make it a little larger screen here, get it into the medium. Okay, so there's our summary block. As you can see, I added a little glyph icon in the background area here. I've got line 1 and line 2. And then we've got the footer area. Notice how this highlights. I hope you can see that. Maybe you can't. But if I move my cursor over that, okay, it is kind of highlighting. I'm using the same thing I did on the summary or the Readme block as well, okay, where I have the opacity set differently, and then I increase the opacity on the hover. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at how we built this. So the first thing, if we take a look down here at the actual div tags, we have the summary block first as the total wrapper. That's the one that wraps everything. Then I have the summary background, and it's inside of here that I would then add the glyph icon. And then we use the summary dash body, and that's where I have then the summary line 1 and summary line 2 classes that I'm applying. So there's the 23, and then the whatever the thing that you're kind of highlighting. Okay, and then I have the footer, and the footer is where I would then put in some words, and then I right justify another glyph here, okay, and it's the chevron right, and that gives me the nice little arrow that points to the right that tells people, hey, this will lead you right down then to another page. Now it doesn't go anywhere now because I don't have that hooked up, but that would be up to you to hook that up. All right, cool. So let's take a look then at the CSS to do this. And as you can see, there's not a lot of CSS here, which is great. Okay, so I've got a summary block. Again, position is relative. Okay, width is 100%. Margin, I did a little bit of margin around it. Okay, I got a little bit of padding on the inside around the whole summary block. Okay, I did set up a minimum height on this, and then a background color and a foreground color. After that, it's just, again, applying, okay, next thing I have is the summary background, and I might have an eye in there. I might have a div in there. So for those, that's where that glyph icon of the heart, in this case, showed up. Okay, margin left, margin top, a font size, the opacity. So you notice the opacity I've got set at like 30% here. Okay. So you can see it's kind of a grayed out. It's a very dim looking heart. And that's because the heart is within that summary background, and it's wrapped up, as we look down here, in an eye. Okay. Wide, right, that opacity. So that's kind of nice. All right, and then, yep, so there we are. So the summary body, again, within that, I want to position this summary body absolutely within there. I'm going to set a top and a right just so that the text, the summary line 1 and 2, are kind of over and down a little bit. And then the summary line 1, text line right, and the font size is double extra large. And for summary line 2 within that summary body, the text align is right, and the font size is medium. And then finally for the summary footer, okay, just like I did on the Readme box as well, position is absolute. Now on this one I did actually add a background color. I wanted it to look different and stand out. On the Readme box I did no additional coloring. And again, the bottom and the right are set to 0. Okay, width is 100%. I got a little bit of padding in there. Okay, I did a font weight. I wanted a certain font weight to make it look, kind of the way that I wanted it to. I wanted everything to be uppercase, so I wanted the words to all be uppercase. Font size is small, and the opacity is 0.6. So again, it looks just a little bit grayed out. Okay, or, not as vibrant. I did eliminate the text decoration on the anchor tag, and the color I set to white. And then look what I did on the hover of the whole footer. Right? I didn't apply this just to the anchor tag. I did the hover on the whole footer. That's when I make the opacity go to 1. Okay, so that way when the user kind of cursors over it, they see a little bit of change there. All right, so then on the next one, let me run this guy. Now I've got 4 different boxes now, and you can see different colors on each one. Okay, now don't beat me up on the colors, right? I did this kind of just to make them look very different. Feel free to change these. And that's what I want you to do, because I did make these themed exactly the way I did the Readme boxes as well. Okay? Put up here, I have a summary block dash primary. I have the primary colors. Okay? For the summary footer, I again have color. For the summary footer of the anchor tag, I have a color. Then I have a PDSA summary block success that has different colors. And so within success, you have the footer area and the anchor tag. Then have a danger area. And then I have, so I tried to stick with the same Bootstrap words, right? Okay, not necessarily the colors, but at least the words. So on this second one, right, not only did I apply the PDSA summary block, but I also applied then the particular color that I wanted, the color theme. So I did a dash primary on the first one. Lapse that guy. Did a success on the next one. I had the dash info on the next one. So all I'm doing is I'm using the same structure on each of these, right? All I'm doing is applying, as you can see here, the different CSS to get the different colors. So that's how that all works. Allows you to theme it. You don't ever have to modify the structure then in order to change the colors. And you can see how everything still works within Bootstrap, so it's responsive. Okay. Again, it's always good to try these things out in a simulator, or if you have the ability to push it out to a website somewhere, great. Do that and then try it out on a real phone, of course. You always want to try it out on a real phone. These simulators are pretty good, but sometimes they don't always do it perfectly. Anyway, give it a shot on both browsers. Okay, and actually try all the other browsers, right? I mean, try it in Firefox, try it in Chrome, try it in Opera. Okay, so the whole 2 people in the world using Opera can use it. Safari. You kind of just want to go through the gamut here. And just, run each one of them and take a look, okay, make sure it works. And then you might want to come in and say, you know what, I don't like those colors. Well, that's great, because you can just come in and change these colors right here. You don't have to, worry about messing up the structure. And a lot of people will say, oh my gosh, I don't want to, break something. Okay, well, no problem. If you break things out this way by separating color from the style, right, the overall look and feel, okay, it's going to be really easy to do. I mean, that's the whole point of cascading style sheets here. All right, so pretty neat. I mean, we're working within Bootstrap, but we're extending it, right, by adding in some of our own kind of widgets here that you can get some good stuff going with. Again, I mean, there's a lot of things that I've done here. Okay, and I've got through. So what I like about this, right, is that it's very easy then to customize the Bootstrap stuff. You're then customizing it, to Bootstrap, okay? And then we're customizing to the way that we want it to look, but we're still maintaining the Bootstrappy look, which I like, okay? And also what I really like is we're building with just a tiny little bit of CSS. I mean, look at that little bit of CSS I did. I don't know if you guys have ever used some of those templates that you can get, like, oh gosh, what is it? Theme Forest. They have some, and Wrap Bootstrap. You can buy these templates for like $20, or sometimes they're free. Okay. Well, that's fine, but if you ever look into those, boy, they are very heavy. Tons of jQuery, tons of CSS, and what I found is that a lot of times I could take their idea but simplify it. And I mean, some of these guys, I actually cut it in like 25% of the code that they used. So anyway, just kind of some neat stuff there. So take advantage of this. Okay, I think you'll find that this is really some pretty cool stuff. I did have a couple questions come in, so I'm going to go ahead and answer those now. So somebody asked, why are we still using EM units? So IE8 when we've moved on to RAM. Well, okay, I'm not going to get into a whole style thing about using pixels or EMs or anything, guys. I keep finding everybody disagrees with everybody on that. Personally, I prefer EMs, so that's just maybe my thing. So that's up to you guys. I'm not gonna. I like EMs because it works across all devices. I've always found it never have any problems. So, but you guys go look and research on what's the best way to use. Everybody has kind of their way of doing things. So, very nice presentation, very methodical. Thank you, Jeffrey. I appreciate that. Oh, somebody asked if why don't I use less? Absolutely. If you wanted to take some of the stuff that I've done here and throw them into less variables, absolutely. Why not? Oh, great idea. Again, my presentation wasn't geared towards that. I wasn't teaching less today, but why not? That'd be a great thing that you could do. So, yeah, great suggestion. Thank you. So unless any other questions are coming in, check out all my other Pluralsight videos. As you can see, I have quite a few. I have Build Your Own Bootstrap Business Application Template in MVC, building mobile websites using web forms, guys. You don't have to move to MVC if you want to do mobile websites. Web forms works with Bootstrap and HTML5. I'm a Microsoft guy. Okay, everything I did here was just HTML, but I do have it in MVC as well. Okay, I did have it in web forms. I still use web forms here and there, but everybody's moving on to MVC, which is great. Nothing wrong with that. But you can still use web forms today. I also have one on how to start and run a consulting business. I've been in business for 24 years. Actually, March 1st was 24 years. I have one on XML processing in .NET. I have WPF for the business programmer, WPF for the Visual Basic programmers, part 1 and 2. So check out pluralsight.com. Obviously, that's what we're here to do. And search for my name if you want to watch any of mine. But there are literally thousands of fantastic courses on Pluralsight, guys. I know so many people using this now. Okay. Paste the download URL. That is a great idea. Let me do that really quick. Somebody had a great suggestion there. Let me grab the URL of where you can download the samples. Very simple. I will do that right now. Great idea. There we go. Okay, so it's pdsa.com/event/pluralsight. Great. So, where do you get the iOS emulator? That is through Electric Plum. Electric Plum. Let me go ahead and type that in. You just do a search in Google for that. Okay, and you can find that. It's really cheap too. If I remember right, I think it's like $60, $60 US, guys, for that for those little add-ins to Visual Studio. So the simulators for iPhone and iPad, really nice. So take a look at those. All right, guys, I'm not getting any other questions coming in. If you have any, I don't mind hanging out for a few more minutes, but I surely hope everybody enjoyed this today. Those are kind of fun, just very simple, quick examples that everybody hopefully can use right away. Go ahead and download those from my site. I got the HTML versions, and I have the MVC versions as well. And then please check out my Pluralsight videos. I would appreciate you all watching them. I think you all know that we all get paid royalties on those. So I've got an ex-wife to support, so that would be really nice. Somebody had a question on any books that you could recommend for Bootstrap. I've never read any books on Bootstrap. I just simply go to getbootstrap.com, and that is where I have gotten all of my information. So, somebody asked if I was planning to include a new course on Pluralsight to integrate AngularJS into my MVC template. I'm not. I'm not doing a lot of Angular at this point. I do probably, will do it at some point in the future, but no, I'm not planning anything like that right now. And there's a lot of great, courses on Pluralsight for Angular as well. Okay. Somebody asked if I had a cheat sheet for Bootstrap classes. Actually, I don't. I've thought about that because there are some that I use, kind of more often than not. I am doing a lot. I am doing a lot with Bootstrap, and so I'm going to keep continuing to do more videos on that for Pluralsight, though. Michael said you missed the presentation, I think, but yes, in a few days they will have this. We are recording all of this, and they will publish it out there. And everybody who signed up, you'll get an email with the information about the recording. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. We'll, kind of stop at 45 minutes here, and I'm going to go ahead and what's my next Pluralsight class? Actually, you know what? It's on kind of this type of thing where I'm going to show people, more extensions of Bootstrap, and I'm going to do it all pure and 100% HTML. That way everybody can enjoy it, not just for MVC or web forms, which is what I've kind of done before. So yeah, I'm actually going to be doing more of the extending Bootstrap stuff. That's going to be my next Pluralsight class. Looking for that somewhere around June or July of this year. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. I appreciate you asking. Bootstrap includes several UI elements that have a JavaScript element to them, yes, like the drop-down menu. A lot of them have events that you can do. Okay. Do you have any suggestions regarding how one would integrate more interactive elements into Bootstrap? Well, again, kind of like I did there, right, where I hooked into the drop-down menu so I could grab the text from that, and then I did my own thing. So a lot of that really is a lot about kind of you using your own jQuery to hook in, because you can hook in as well to any Bootstrap element or basically any HTML element. So you're not limited to just the things that they give you in their JavaScript. You can add on your own. So somebody put up a nice little link here of a cheat sheet for Bootstrap 3. It's a PDF it looks like. So thanks, Warren. Appreciate that. So make sure everybody looks in the chat window there, because Warren put up a real nice cheat sheet. So check that one out. I haven't looked at that one. So am I going to have any more presentations on Bootstrap? I don't know. That's up to the Pluralsight folks. And so if they have me back to do another one of these webinars, I'd be happy to do that. And like I said, I'm going to be doing more Pluralsight videos on Bootstrap though. So I love it. I think it's a great CSS. I think it's a great tool. So somebody said they can't see that. Sucks. Let me just check it real quick here for you guys, and we'll see what we can do since we got time. Live master cheat sheet came up for me.
I can post that cheat sheet for you if you'd like. It looks like you've got there are a couple more questions coming in real quick. Let me go ahead and post that for you. And of course, we would love to have you back to do another presentation for us.
All right. Good. Howard had another question. Is there any major hurdles between Bootstrap 2 and Bootstrap 3? Absolutely. There's a lot of hurdles because they actually changed a lot of their style names. So because we did our original site in Bootstrap 2 and we had to convert it to Bootstrap 3, and we literally had to go through every single page and change everything. So unfortunately, yeah, it kind of sucked. Somebody said they could not get the sample code at that link. It should be there. /event/Pluralsight. You basically, yeah, it should come up. All right, try a different browser. Okay, I don't know what browser you're on, so you might have to try a different browser. So had a shot. Okay, is there a version 4 of Bootstrap? I know they've just released another 3 dot something, and I'm not sure about a version 4. I haven't looked at that, so I don't know. Hopefully, if there is, they don't change it drastically like they did between 2 and 3. But 2 and 3, what was different there was 2 is desktop with some mobile stuff, and then they switched completely where 3 was mobile first, but it will also look good on the a tablet or the desktop. And so that's why a big change in all their class names and everything. Cool.
Great. Well, Paul, I believe that's all the time that we have for today. It looks like if any other additional questions come through, we'll be happy to address those after the webinar. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Thank you for your participation. You can also email your comments or your feedback to us at webinars@pluralsight.com. We'll make sure Paul hears from you. This webinar was recorded, and we'll email the link in a few days. Remember, tweet about your experience today with #PluralsightLive for a chance to win a free month of training. And remember, when you leave, please fill out our survey. Thank you again so much, and have a wonderful day.